All right, the hour of 5:30 has come and actually passed us by a couple of minutes. I'd like to call to order this special meeting of District 116 for January 28th, 2019. Roll call, please.
Member Carter.
Here.
Member Hall.
Here.
Member Patton.
Here.
Member Pulaski.
Here.
Member Fisher is here. President Demon.
We do have a quorum present, and we will be taped tonight, but not shown live. They'll show it later, and so Benita will be able to look at the video. I'd like to thank Jason Liggett for actually running the cameras for us tonight, but we're not on live due to the city council meeting.
Oh, okay.
So there are no members of the public present, so there'll be no citizen statements this evening. We do have a call for exec session tonight, just a real quick one. For the printed reason? Press?
Yes.
Okay. For the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district or legal counsel for the district, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee or against legal counsel for the district to determine its validity. We'll vote on that later, but just making the announcement now.
Okay.
We need a motion to approve tonight's basically a single-purpose agenda for continuing our interviews. So motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. We're now ready to go, so to stay on time tonight, no further delay. Our first presenter tonight is the Illinois Association of School Boards. So I apologize, I think we cut 5 minutes into your time.
You're okay.
We're going to do a few introductions here. First, my name is Tom Leahy, and I'm the director of executive searches with the Illinois Association of School Boards. And my wife and I live an hour west of Springfield in the country in Pike County, not far from where this person said she was born in Beardstown.
Yeah. Oh, I know where.
With that, we have 3 children and 13 grandkids.
And it's
I
probably
say that
already
just on a
cold over
personal
there.
note.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
It's probably already cold over there.
Yes, it is. Well, and our daughter lives, anyway, she lives near Crystal Lake, and it's going to be 27 below there tomorrow night. and next
Yeah.
night. But with that, we have family. I've been a teacher for 6.5 years, a principal for 14.5 years, and a superintendent for 14. I retired from Quincy Public Schools as superintendent in 2008. Thought I would be doing this maybe 5 years, and with that, it's been now 11. So I've enjoyed it part-time, and just do a little introduction. I'll let these guys do the same thing. Jim?
My name is Jim Helton, with the Illinois Association of School Boards for the last 4 years. Retired as superintendent of Waterloo. I was there for 9 years, and then prior to that had served 2 principalships in 2 districts. Taught 17 years in the I-80 corridor. Home for me is in that Effingham, Sturgeon, Strasburg area, so that's one not too far away. Actually drove through on my way from Edwardsville today. And again, looking forward to meeting and presenting this evening with you all.
Hi, my name is Tim Buss. I'm newly acquired from the Illinois Association of School Boards this early fall. I was a superintendent. I was in a unique situation where I've only worked in one school district, and it's Wabash, District 348 in Mount Carmel, Illinois. And I was there for 33 years, and for the last 14 as school superintendent of a unit district of about 1,500 kids. Excited to be here with Tom and Jim, and we talked about the weather and the roads. I'm hoping to catch a little bit of the tailwind. I fought the wind and the weather in about 2 hours and 45 minutes south and east, and I'm hoping by the time we leave, I'll just be able to put it on cruise control and one-handed. So I'm happy to be here.
Well, I've already had my tailwind. It was all the way from western Illinois, but going back will be a different story. But
Yeah.
I want to pass to you some information that you probably have, we sent to you, as you guys probably know, some information before. And this is very similar. But we're going to go through a PowerPoint of our process and also some information about possible timelines for the 3 searches that we're proposing to help you with. But I want to get around and pass these to you and shake your hand and
Great.
meet you.
Good, glad to meet you. Thank you for coming.
as well.
Thank you very much.
Everyone's got cold hands.
With that, if we may sit, it might be easier to operate the computer as well, and then plus the mic can hear us. But I do want to share with you that we are the organization of your association, and I noticed the two signs in the front door giving the code of conduct and also the governance model that you guys have been involved in. I know Patrick Rice has been here with you, and perhaps is coming back again to see you. I think it's being worked out, possibly. But our main goal is to serve public schools. And we can tell you that we have been doing this as an association for about 50 years. Doug Blair, who is now no longer with us, was one of the founders of it in our association. Our search consultants have 40-plus years of combined experience. We've been involved in over 200 searches in the state. We are an equal opportunity employer, but we know it's your task to employ the superintendent. So we assist you with many other services than just the search part. What you see before you on this screen is the yellow are the number or percentages of candidates in a specific year that are from Illinois. The other darker colors, and I have a little color vision trouble, so is it blue?
Yeah,
Okay. From out of state. We are sensitive to and advertise across the country through the National Affiliation of Superintendent Searchers. That's an organization that we have been involved in for a long time. I'm a past chair. Donna Johnson, who was in fact the director of our department before, was a past chair. Dawn Miller, who was in our as a consultant, she's no longer with us. She deceased a year ago or so. Was a past chair too. But we involve ourselves with them in order to now be able to conduct nationwide search. So our Illinois experience is what brings us talent from within Illinois, but our reach, as you can see, with over 100 consultants located in 40 states, and those are the states that have associations like IASB, who have departments like we do, and we meet with them twice a year. We do it in the summer at the chair's location. This coming summer it will be in Columbus, Ohio, where our chair resides and is from Ohio. Last year it was in Minnesota. And we meet also at the National School Board Conference. I don't know if you guys attend the national conference in Philadelphia coming? Okay. You probably do the fall conference in Chicago.
Yeah.
Right. But with that, we have several states that we will advertise, in fact, to a website that will be broadcast throughout the nation. It's a misunderstanding by some districts and some firms that don't think IASB has a national reach. We do. And in fact, I'm going to be going next 2 weeks from now to Los Angeles for the AASA Superintendent's Conference, National Conference, and we will have a full-day Job Central booth for Illinois there. And we would take your information with us if we're fortunate enough to be doing the searches for you. We will advertise that through a form that will help candidates know what Urbana is about. So,
And the other piece of it is too, I've just noticed within the searches that I've done on the out-of-state candidates, our reach is there, and not only do we advertise, but it's that conversations with those consultants in those states about the credibility of those applicants and the integrity of those applicants, and are they really who they say they are, and what work experience can we actually verify and get. And I think that's a real critical component as we go forward.
right. So with that, your involvement, of course, is full in this. It's your search. We will develop a timeline with you. I have a suggested one that's just a tentative timeline for all the 3 positions. I'll pass to you in just a bit. But it does begin with your action, and it ends with your action, meaning you employ somebody. So once that occurs, and within that, you have in your paperwork in the search process the proven pyramid. If you look at the lower left, and you can't really read it on this screen, but it's from 1 through 10, actually are all of the steps that are involved in the process, and you've seen that in the information that I sent you. We, as part of the process, do a superintendent online search survey. We can do them for the assistant superintendent positions as well, and we'll work with your interim superintendent, and we'll get to the timing of that with the new superintendent-elect as well. But the online survey is SurveyMonkey. We provide the link to you to give to your staff, community members, and you notice it says Board of Education by paper. I do paper purposely because I've had as many as 12 board members self-identify on the Survey Monkey as a board member. And we full well know that that's not possible. So that's part of the process.
And to get away with that, what we also have are password protected surveys.
Yes.
And so a certain stakeholder group could have a password if this board desires, and then they would be able to access that survey as via their stakeholder group.
And Jim speaks with authority at that because you were the first person in our associate group to do that. We're doing Edwardsville search currently for their school district right now, and Jim's involved in that as the lead person. We can also add different languages to that survey, so people can access whatever language it is that they are fluent in. So, good. We, as an option, and we'll talk about that, and that's one of the additional options that I have recommended to you, and that's on some sheets here that you have the search summary. But we'll get to, when we get to the timeline and some other information, an option means is that we would come into your district and work with staff and community members. One staff member here could do a full day and get a cross-section of all of your groups. I would do that, come probably the night before, stay up early at whatever time that buses leave, or it's been at 6 a.m. sometimes to go meet groups to talk to them about this process and get input from them. But we want them included in staff members, students, parents, and community members. They're going to help tell us then the desired characteristics that this community and district are looking for used in our recruitment materials. Anything to add there?
Yeah, and I think this is critical. I mean, you have the survey, I mean, that's the quantitative piece, but quite honestly, sitting and talking and listening and having that interaction with those stakeholders, no matter whether they're small groups, evening community groups, administration, staff, that's where you get that qualitative. It's really rich. You get them. I mean, you understand, and you get to actually write down exactly what they what they're saying. And what I found is it doesn't take long for a consultant to spread through the district that this is real. Tell them the truth. That way, we'll get the truth.
Right.
As a board to present to the Board of Education, and then it's presented to the board. I mean, we'll present this at a quantitative piece and then also a qualitative piece
Correct.
for you, and put them into the concerns that the district may have, the strengths that you have, the ideal characteristics look for. That will be combined and basically across all of our groups, they will be found congruence. That way, you'll have those pieces.
Right.
We're getting ready to do Edwardsville focus group.
That's actually at the end.
Oh, at the end,
Okay, what
okay.
we're talking to Tim about now is the one at the beginning, to gather
very good,
information.
very good.
And that one at the beginning, actually, which Jim just expanded on, helps develop a brochure that is then distributed to candidates. And it's done through real magnet distribution, and that distribution goes out to over 6,000 individuals. And you're not going to how do we contact that many people? Well, in fact, we do that because we have the membership lists of the Illinois Principal Association, which is near 5. We have the IASA database lists. We also have the school business official lists. And what I'm sharing with you is so you can see what the document's going to look like that is then advertised recruiting candidates to come to Urbana. So you'll notice one of them, I think, is, did I give Champaign? Also Peoria. I did that a couple of years ago. Champaign, we did what, Jim, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
I think. We've been involved in Galesburg. Here's another one from Galesburg. We were involved in DeKalb some time ago, and I chose those to share with you because they're somewhat similar in sense to what Urbana would have, because you have the university presence here. DeKalb has Northern University. Jim has done Carbondale
Carbondale.
95, which is where Carbondale SIU.
Yeah, Edwardsville right now, SIUE. so.
Right. So our reach to districts is broad in the sense that one of the smallest district I've done a search in is about 110 kids, K-8, west of Lincoln, Illinois. The largest I've been involved in is Peoria, 150, with, I think, 12,500. They are a lot similar in the sense of what we do, but they are vastly different in how we handle it. And the needs are greater in larger districts. So what we do to recruit is we go to IASA events in the state of Illinois and national events. The affiliation distribution, as I shared with you. I'll be at the National School Board Conference coming up at the end of March The National Conference of Education is in Los Angeles. I mentioned that. We send information to the Women in School Leadership Forum. We have professional advancement seminars of our own that we attract candidates. We had about 2 weeks ago, 22 individuals who are aspiring superintendents, none of them sitting, who came to Springfield, and we do a full-day workshop with them on how to apply. We go through the CUBE, which Council of Urban Boards of Ed, ALAS, which is the Latino administrators and superintendents, and the Real Magnet Outreach. We also have access to the National Affiliation of Black School Educators, and we can advertise with them as well. So, moving forward, as I mentioned, we advertise and recruit, and these are the organizations generally that we send our information out to. Our website, of course, the top right, or left rather, IASA Job Bank, and Job Bank is really the go-to spot for educators to advertise all kinds of positions, whether it be teacher, bus driver, cooks, superintendent, principals, assistant superintendents. All of those are listed usually on that. Now, this is what Tim was talking about just a bit ago, and we are doing this at Edwardsville coming up, the consultant-facilitated stakeholder interviews of finalists. Bless you. We would, and that's a recommendation, and we found more districts doing these because it's been of value. That is this sense. If you get 6 candidates from us, you interview them in the first round, you narrow your pool to 3, then you have the final interviews with 3, and community and staff group as well. So they would stair-step through the community and staff group. You could have 2 groups doing it. That's another person coming to help with that. And then the board interviews them. We do a potential for success rubric from those groups to tell us their perception of success of them.
Based upon your ideal candidate.
Everything's based on that. Yeah, this document, it really is the driver of the applicant stuff. And it's your story. And then you can tailor it however you want. We help with that. It must fit, if you will, on the 8 columns, folded twice. We have that. But we compile the results of those meetings with the groups, and then we share that with the board, full well knowing we tell the groups it's not your choice. You are giving input only. The Board of Education really is the only group who has the legal authority and the responsibility to hire persons. But if you want other input, we can make that occur.
And those can either be homogeneous or hetero. We've done them staff only, community only, merge them. I mean, it's whatever. I mean, up to groups of about 40. I mean, we can actually work with the district to devise that size and what you need with that. So,
Right.
And I used to, we've done them in smaller districts and larger. And larger tends to like it. And in certain instances, depending upon their background, smaller is also included. It's just another piece of, I think, as you take a look at the board governance goals of engaging the community, this fits right into that.
Right.
So what most boards are trying to do.
So in the process, what you're approaching now is the place of approving a new superintendent. We're available to help with a site visit. We suggest you go to the location of who you believe your preference is. You could go to more than one, but if you go to one for sure and you think that that's who you want to employ, you've been through the 6 interviews, the preliminary, however many that is, and then your 3 or so at finals, and you've identified a person. You authorize your board president to say to them, we believe we want you to be our next superintendent, contingent upon the site visit to your location of home and work, and they help you with that. They help you organize who you're going to talk with, but then you're going to go there also and talk to other people. They've given you and us authority to talk to anyone in the world about them when they apply through us. They have to sign off and agree to that. So the other piece of that is that also contingent upon the contract. So if you can't get a contract developed with your preference, then you would move to the next person probably, and we help with some information about all of that. You have a complimentary follow-up training with your field service person as part of this process, and normally it's a half day, but since you are approaching 3 possible openings, and I'm going to get into the fee of that in just a bit, we will allow it to be a full day with your new people, if you will. It's a good idea to bring a board together. I know you have elections coming, and I think 3 or 4 of you are up to 19 possibly. Isn't that 3? All right, I read that on your website about you. Are you running? Okay. So you may or will have one, at least one. Yes. Got it, okay. So you could have 4 new,
So we'll
Could
have
have 3
between
new.
1 and
Okay.
3.
okay?
Definitely have 1 new one
Yes.
and potentially as many as 3.
Okay, okay. Got it. And with that being said, this time of year, candidates will ask of us and say, you know, I may be employed by a different board than I'm going to work for. I don't think I see that occurring here. If you seat them at the end of April and if you haven't employed somebody yet, you're going to see the timeline here. It would be the new board can be involved with the old even in doing some work with this. And we've helped with that. We've helped facilitate those times where candidates coming can be involved. That way everyone has an opportunity to see the pools, to see it. The only caution is that when you're in closed session, only staff and current members are bound to the confidentiality of closed session. Your attorney needs to probably give a hand and help with that part to help it do it correctly. But we will add a time for the workshop since you might have us do 3 openings. So our search fee is based on average daily attendance. Yours falls in that $8,900 range for the start process, and that's the full search, which we call the basic search. And that when you look at the sheet that's in your packet of the summary of the search itself, you'll see the bullets. You'll see the bullets of what that entails. And then we've recommended some other steps here as well. Before I go then to the specifics of these positions, do you have any questions of something that I've talked way too long already, I can tell. I'm afraid I'm going to put you guys to sleep. Any questions of anything? I'm glad we're the first of 2 tonight and not the fourth of 4 last week. But we would do whatever it needs. But so the base cost is the $8,900. What you see there is actually the bottom portion of that summary, and it's better to look on the paper. These are the options we've been talking about. We are recommending, in fact, the one with the focus groups for a full day in the district. We're also recommending that you have 2 of us interview candidates in a full day time. So what we would do if we had 30 or 40 applicants, by the way, we've had as few as 15 in districts and as many as plus 80 in others in Illinois this year. And it depends on where it is, and I think you would attract quality people and have a larger number. But we would narrow the pool to 10 to 12 people. We did this in Edwardsville recently. The 3 of us sat in a meeting with candidates coming in an organized fashion, same questions, 30 minutes, 40-minute time frame with 30-minute interviews. And then we chose the top 6 from those people to bring to you. It's a value because we get to compare them with each other in a very organized, structured way. Tim, you were involved the first time this last time, and
It was my favorite experience. I mean, you could put names to faces and.
yeah. And we
They're
do
all
talk
there.
to them, of course, and we check them out, but it's not the same as doing an interview with them all through the day, the same process. So in this sense, the search fee for the superintendent, the full part is $8,900. That's for the base cost. What we're recommending is that you have us come in for 1 full day, 1 staff. If we do 2 days with 1 staff, it adds $1,500 more. So it's $1,500 per staff per day. But I can tell you my day of doing this would be with you at 6 a.m. active, suited up, through the evening. So it's almost like 2 days in one because we want to reach as many people as possible.
And we start with non-cert, I mean, whoever you want us to talk to. And, you know, we've met with your like I said, your bus drivers, your non-certified staff, your teachers, administration, community members, parents. I mean, there's each district's culture is just a little bit different.
Right.
And so you define us, who you want us to talk to.
Right.
And then that really fits in this piece right here. And so is it 15, is it 3? You decide that. And is it 1 or is it 2? For a size of your district, it just really depends on who you really want us to talk to.
Right. And notice that the total fee is the addition of all those 4 items.
Right.
But if you tell us we don't want one of them, we take it off and we would reduce the contract by that amount. We just take it away. And we would sign a revised contract with you to do so. So what you have in place here, and notice it says not to exceed, there are no additional expenses.
Right.
This is our fee based on the things that we do with and for you to help you to be that cost only. We don't add any more. It's anything we do as far as travel or staying or not is our burden. Right. Then with the Assistant Superintendent of Student Learning, Our search fee would be a not to exceed of $71.20. That is a 20% reduction of $8,900. So that's our practice, is to, if you have us do an additional search, we would reduce the fee of the base cost by 20%, and that's the $71.20. We then reduce it again from the $71.20 by another 20% if you have us do the Assistant of Human Resource and Professional Development. Then that you can see one's $71.20, the other's $56.96. Added together, all of those then would be $27,716, not to exceed those. With that, before I go to that slide, I want to then talk with you about this timeline. So what you're looking at is my work to arrange timing for this particular search. And in your proposal to us, or your letter to us, you stated that you wanted all three to be complete by the start of July 1. And we get that. We do prefer to have the superintendent search go a little bit quicker than the others and involve them in the process ultimately of selecting who the recommended assistants are. So you'll see that in here. You'll notice that this is pretty packed. And it's so packed because there's three positions all on the same sheet. But this would be what we would use to keep everything straight. I would come back, if approved by you, I'll come back as soon as we can arrange it to schedule the actual dates. And we work on the timing, and that would be one of the process steps. So notice we present on tonight, 28th. You could do official action January or February, sooner the better, as you know. We would post the openings on our website and IASA Job Bank as soon as we have a signed contract back from you. With that, I would meet with you to plan the search and approve the timeline. And that would be this document refined. That means that we're going to come and really zero in on what the dates are. I will share with you that I've had, so far this year, 10 searches since summer till about now. I only have a couple going on now. If we are doing this search with you, I'm going to assign it down the chairs from here a little more because I want to concentrate here. That doesn't mean I won't do some other ones, and I am involved in a few right now, small places. But I will concentrate fully to make sure that this search is handled very well and you get the service you need. That's part of my sales pitch. I went too quick to that part. But we would do then the online survey this next month quickly. If we have us come in to do focus groups, it could occur in February, but that might be a little quick for us to put it together, meaning with your schedules. We want to do it in such a way that we don't cause harm to your schedule for kids. We want to get in the way of the schools going through their teaching of the kids. But we can probably do it pretty certainly in March. That's the option, the optional, which is highlighted, and that's one that we showed you up there. You would in March approve the material for the announcement, and that would be this document. I'd come back to you and develop the plan of what are you looking for in a new superintendent? What are the ideal characteristics that you're looking for in this person? And we can do it with the assistants as well. We will have published brochures. We would have, in fact, this one's from a director of instruction at Muhammad Seymour. We did it in 16. This one's a director of finance from Dunlap. We did in 18. So we will have brochures for each of the positions. All three will have this type of document. All three will have a distribution through the Real Magnet process and advertised. So with that, we approve the announcements with you. We post them as soon as they are ready to the website and send them out through the Real Magnet distribution of over 6,000. The final date to apply for the superintendent then is April. And you'll notice that that's about midway down the sheet. We, as soon as possible, would review and screen the applications. We also then would do the interviews of superintendent candidates with the three of us doing them. And that's one of the additional fees. I would come as soon as I could get through this and have presenting candidates to you to recommend that we're recommending you interview, helping you with the interview process. What are the questions going to be? How you conduct the interview, and how you sit even, and where you do this, and how you operate. So the sooner the better on the superintendent one, while the others are being advertised. And then their final date to apply, if you will, is delayed some. So it's behind the other one a little bit, in the sense that you'd have time to hire a new superintendent sooner, and that's even noted here. You would do your superintendent interviews in April. You would have a final date to apply of April for the assistants. So if you follow, we're going through a fashion of keeping them at distance a little bit with each other. You would do second interviews, and you could have the option of us facilitating focus groups for that final interview piece, and do a site visit. You could then, by the end of May, and know that by the end of May doesn't have to be the last day of May. It can't be probably in April, but it could be in mid-May. It could be in early May. It could be whenever, as soon as possible, that you can appoint a new superintendent to then be involved in helping hire the two assistants. And that would be involved with your interim and the new superintendent-elect. And you'll see those step on out May, June, presenting recommended assistant candidates to the interim. We work then with them. Unless you want involved in it, which we'll do whichever you choose, but our avenue generally is to go to the superintendent and now the interim with them, and help. They even help screen the candidates down. We would give them access to the pool, let them see it, give them a password to it, have them sign a confidentiality agreement with us, and their staff of yours are going to be, so they're bound to that as well. So by the end of May, the interim superintendent and the elect superintendent could present their recommendations to you for assistance, and then you can employ them by the end of June. So you follow it. We'll keep track of it. Now you look like you have glazed over, but I think you understand. You all seem to understand this. This is a process that we will help keep things on track and have done them quite a bit. So with that, why choose us? And this is our kind of our capstone, if you will. 17, 18 people on the job that we've helped with, 16, 17, 100% of them are still there. 92% are still in districts that we had 15, 16. 76.2 in 14, 15, 84.2 in 13, 14. Our statement of assurance to you is this. If by chance this doesn't reach the result that you need in the new candidate, new superintendent or assistants, we will come back in and assist again without additional cost. There will not be more money, but there will be more processes, and similar to this, if it takes it, whatever it takes, we stay with you through the time. That's our guarantee and assurance. National presence is what we have, and know that our key is that we're throughout the state of Illinois. All those dots are us. From 9 through 17, we've been in 72 different counties and 239 school districts served. So and this is what we do. This is our job in IASB. I do sometimes some finance workshops. I've been out of it 11 years now. I've kind of lost track of some of that, but we still sometimes help with some other things. But mainly this is what we do. Jim, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the opportunity to come and work in Urbana would be tremendous for us.
Yeah.
We respect our district a tremendous amount. We've talked, I have talked to Patrick Rice a lot over the past few years about Urbana. I've come to the, actually I came to the spring or fall dinner here one time, and I was here, yeah. So yeah, we're anxious.
I didn't know if they knew that and they'd let you come back.
I was polite.
I understand.
It's for me. It's really been a tremendous opportunity to work for IASV and working with school districts. So thank you.
I'm just excited to be a part of the team, the new person of the team. But as you can see, Tom is our great leader, and Jim does wonderful work. So I would love to be a part of the process to help pick these three positions with you.
You'll see also in this document, I think you received from me a resume. I had sent a single page one, but I also included Jim's and Tim's in this folder as well, so you can take a look. I just passed to Mr. Demmett the professional service agreements that we have in place, and the reason they're new ones is Ben Schwarm, who is our deputy director, he signed these, and we can leave those with you. And if you approve us, all we need is formal approval by you, by your board of action, whenever that is, and then sign documents and scan to us, and then we advertise. And we're ready to go. I mean, this thing can move quick. So, timing, I guess I have a question. Timing, what is your plan?
As soon as I get the green light to go, there we go.
I can probably hear you, but maybe the people.
Well, the
Yeah.
tape at home. Our hope is to have a firm selected by next Tuesday night.
Okay. My card is inside the,
Yes.
and that's the cell number is my best way. If I get an office call, I'll get an email alerting me of that, and I'll get to hear the message and then call you. But either way, email, cell number, office number, I'll get back to you as soon as I can, so. Any other questions for us?
Yes, any board members, any questions?
Can you talk a little bit more about, you spoke briefly about it, but your process you follow to kind of vet candidates and to do reference checks and just to make sure that candidates we see are,
Don't
say,
have
appear on
problems.
paper? Right, right, because I know that happens. It's
Yeah,
not
it-
infrequent.
It does happen, unfortunately, and we've not had that occur much, if any, that I can think of right now, really. Because I can tell you that, first of all, if candidates are from Illinois, we're going to find out about them without question. And if they're from out of state, we're going to find out about them through the national affiliation. I can call Butch Felker in Texas, or I can call Allison Schaefer in North Carolina, or those people we know, and we meet with them. And they'll tell us the truth of them. The key to know is that, a couple things. I've been on the IASA Board of Directors, and I was a past president of that organization, and I can still talk to people who I worked with through that organization about candidates who know them in their region. If we find out something that is of a questionable, they're not going to make it through this. Our reputation's with you, and we don't at all want there to be an issue about that. So we collect all their applications, we screen them independently on paper, and then we meet together and decide on, okay, what 15, 20 of them still can do the job or licensed. Out-of-state people need to be licensed. They need to understand finance. It's a rascal here. I'll say that again. It's a rascal. And the key to that is that we have to have people who can do this job. I know they have assistants here, and you're hiring a couple of those as well. So with that, and I've read articles, what I'm kind of getting off track here, but we screen them independently, come together and decide, and then if you have us do the interviews, we'll see them, look them in the eye, and we'll then make calls of people who know them that they may not even know we're calling somebody. A couple of jobs back. We dig on that. We cannot do, though, like you can as the employer, to do the really true total background check. We're a Fair Credit Reporting Act agency in the sense that there's some limitations for us. We're not the actual employer. So there's a few limitations. But from my standpoint, if we know of something wrong, they're not getting through it. And I've had that more than I'd
Thank
like,
you.
actually.
Yeah, I'm sure, yeah.
I hope that
Yeah,
helps.
Absolutely, thank you.
Other questions from you?
Kind of curious what percentage of the time a candidate applies initially, or a candidate is recruited to apply.
We do some of both, but we're careful with that because we're an open door. In fact, I've already been approached. When the newspaper article came out and you narrowed your pool to 5 search firms, and that came out in the paper, I had someone contact me right away knowing that we were going to present. And if we are, what would I think of them applying? Well, we had that discussion. And I know of others who want to move to somewhere larger, and we will make calls. We have to be somewhat careful because our association has our members all over the place, but we invite them to apply. Along with that, we are a totally confidential organization with their applications, and the candidates know that. And that in fact attracts them and helps recruit them to a position because they know it's not going to be known unless they get to the final few. A lot of them don't want it known at all until they get down to the final few because it can cause harm if they're bored at home.
The other flip side of that, Paul, is, being an open search, we truly get a lot of people who, if they're wanting to move to Urbana, it's just not our pool of candidates that we're sharing this with. we are sharing it with the world, so to speak, and it is a true open search.
And we are careful not to, we don't peg a group of people and say, okay, this 6, we know who they are, they're in our, what we call stable. We don't have that. Meaning, we will have people we'll contact and invite them to apply, but we don't guarantee to candidates until they get through the entire process of our search that they're going to get an interview with you. We don't call someone up and say, this is for you. You need to have this job. It's not our place to do that. That's not good governance for you. But we'll hunt them. We'll look.
And the other piece of that is our work in your district hasn't begun yet. We haven't talked to the stakeholders. We haven't interviewed. We haven't. There are great superintendents in the state of Illinois. But will every one of them be the correct fit for Urbana? Probably not.
So
it's
you only
up-
need one and you only want one.
That's right. And so from our standpoint, it's finding out the data, finding out the backside of it, and what truly are you looking for here, and what proven success does other candidates have whenever they come to interview here.
And we're seeing a lot of good candidates that are superintendent at smaller districts that are wanting to move up, that, this would be a great fit for you. So
Well,
we're
and I
seeing a
can
lot of that.
personally speak to that in the sense that I was at 3 superintendencies. One was 600 kids, one with 1,100 kids. And I interviewed then in Quincy and got that job. And the interview question was, how are you going to come from a small system into a large? Well, I handled almost every possible thing you had at the small because no one else is there. Now I'm interviewing like I'm interviewing with you guys. But my point is that there are many, many good people who can do the position.
Yeah.
Yep, and we will attract them. So, excellent question. Now, with that, if you have people in the area that you've seen before and you don't want them in the mix, we can make sure that doesn't occur. If you have individuals that you want us to contact and invite to apply, we will do that. If you have individuals you want to guarantee an interview, we'll have that discussion with you about that.
If you have internal candidates.
We'll have that discussion
We'll
with
have
you.
that discussion as well.
Yeah.
So if you've been reading about Urbana, you know that we're usually a pretty open community here in terms of transparency of our
Yes.
governance. But in this particular case, we need to be even more transparent than we have been in the past.
Right.
And so how do you, what would you add to that conversation about keeping the search open and transparent through the process?
What I see, let me tell you an experience at Dunlap. Dunlap severed their contract with their current superintendent last year in December. Sounds familiar? And we came in and helped them find an interim superintendent, because we do that as well, by the way. If this thing doesn't work out, and of course, you have a good one in Dr. Williams now. But with that, when I entered into that with that community and went to the buildings, the community members, the groups, and laid it out, tell us the truth. Board's not there, administrators aren't there. It's safe with us. We get a clear picture of what's going on, and they know that we will listen to them and pass it on. That's the transparency part. We pass it on.
And we present it to you in an open session.
That's right.
I mean, and the reports that we develop for you are accessible. A lot of districts put them PDF on their websites after we do so. My last experience working at Edwardsville, they had us visit every single building. They had 10 elementary buildings. They had 2 middle schools. They had 1 high school. Visited every building, taught, did 2 community evening sessions.
It helped that this guy lived in Edwardsville.
Yeah.
To share that with you.
I mean, but the piece is, then we presented in an open meeting, had a similar situation like this, and said, here's what everybody said.
Yeah, the only time.
And
we will-
and it was packed.
Yeah, the only time we will keep things confidential is if someone is named, and it could cause harm. For example, we get open comments on this online survey. The Survey Monkey has a place where you can write in comments. And I've experienced comments that have nothing to do with the search, that has to do with when they suspended their kid out of school, and they hate this, they give names. And they want somebody to be hired, or they don't want someone to be hired. And we redact that, remove it from the document, but give it generally to the board president for its closed time. Not open to, you don't want to hang out everything. So, but it's very open.
Other firms that we've interviewed have had differing opinions as to when you get down to the final 3, whether those names become public or not become public.
Mm.
What's the final three?
I think they're public, because you're going to make them public by calling their references.
Okay.
Now, if you want them confidential, you can do that. But
No, we don't.
We prefer it be public.
And we've operated in it, the last, 2 years ago when we did Champaign, we had the final 3 candidates that were public.
Okay.
And went through
Yeah.
that. And it was vetted.
And we
there
manage
was
that, and we help
articles,
you
we were
manage
able
it.
to-
The other thing to know, too, is that if you have a media force, which you, I'm sure, do, with the TV station here, and you have newspapers and all of what you have, we can assist with that by being the contact for this piece. We want to be the contact of the search, and we're very careful to make sure it's handled correctly. But we do, because we haven't had many that are total confidential to the end. I don't know that I've had any. So public's better, yep.
I have,
Other questions, please?
I have a question for you. I'm just curious. I know that when teachers come to the state of Illinois, they have to, I think, test
Yes.
and be recertified. What is the process for a superintendent from another state?
Same thing.
Is it the
It's
same?
the
Okay,
same
I was
thing.
not.
There has been some new developments in the law lately that has to do with licensure and reciprocity between states, but the candidates from out of state must contact the Illinois State Board of Ed directly and assure us that they have certification. So the testing's their own test. They'd have a basic skills test, they'd have the superintendent's endorsement test. It's now the licensure piece. But we'll be very careful not to pass people through who are not licensed, because sometimes that occurs, or not with us, we don't allow it. But it has in other places before, and you have a guarantee, quasi-verbal guarantee from a candidate that it will get it within 2 years, and they don't.
Right.
Now you got a problem. And you really can't hire somebody that's not licensed.
Right.
And we check and double check that when we're going through all the
Yes, we do.
applications. to make
Mary
sure.
Torgler is our administrative assistant. She's our full-time person in Lombard office. We have 2 offices, Springfield and Lombard. We work out of both of those. But with that, she will absolutely she's our private eye, if you will, with that. So,
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
other thoughts? Please.
Yeah.
What do you see, like a percentage ratio or whatever, of male to female applicants?
It depends on the district, and of course, we simply open the door, and we want all different diversities, different gender, we want them to apply. We don't at all take a position of saying, okay, you're going to have 2 of these and 2 of those and 3 of those, because it's not our place to do that. It must be the best of all of them. But we are seeing more females. And in fact, at the thing we did in Springfield a couple weeks ago, out of the 22 there, over half were ladies. So we're seeing many more. And you know what really puzzles me a little that there aren't more anyway, because look where the teaching base comes from. All our grandkids with elementary teachers, most of them have young ladies who are teachers. And you'd think you'd have many, many more. But it's happening. It's turning.
And when people begin to inform you that you want to go, they want to be a part of the search
Mhm.
and
You mean apply for the position?
apply. Do you, within like a 5-mile span of the district that, needs to have somebody there, where do you think you're getting most of your pool of candidates? Do they live within that area? Or
No,
is it
they come
further
from all
out?
over. They come from all over the state, and when they do apply, they do it online, and we see their application immediately. We can check the number and the names and the whole bit. So we don't have any data available to tell you that we're going to have 20% from 5-mile radius and 30% from a 10-mile radius. It doesn't work that way. Superintendents especially are ready to move and be mobile. You'll make some decisions then about residents once employed, previous experience. Do you want them to have superintendent experience or teaching and administrative for sure, probably. We'll help with that through this process too.
And that comes to the next one is, first time, people that are saying, hey, I want to be a superintendent
Mhm.
after all these years. What do you see, candidate-wise, numbers?
We
Do you
most for a
like
place.
100 new people that suddenly want to become superintendents?
Well,
or
we
there's
have-
like
we-
10 here, 20 there?
I think for a district like Urbana, most of the people who will apply will have experience, because they need that. At least a central office in maybe a larger district, or a principal even of a larger high school. But I don't think we have data available that just identifies how many of them are first timers. Now, I will tell you this, we do keep track of how many superintendents change in the state.
Okay.
And we have a
That's
practice.
kinda next, so
And
keep
it's
going.
125 average per year. A few years ago, when they talked about the teacher's retirement system, that's 165 changed. And 90 of those were brand-new first-time people. So approximately 50 to 60 each year. Maybe that answers the question you just asked. They're first-time people.
Okay.
And I can tell you that when I was a first-time superintendent, I didn't have a clue. But within a year, my bookkeeper trained me on finance, and I just had a lot of learning curve. So if they're successful in the position they're in now is the key, whatever that is.
And just, it's not so much where they apply from, it's how well they match what you're looking for.
Yes.
I mean, we could have 30 apply within a 30-mile radius, but just because they're within a 30-mile radius, do they have the experience that Urbana is looking for?
Right.
Maybe not.
And the need.
And the need. I mean, so it's matching those pieces of it that's, I think, is most important.
Yep.
So.
How often do you see repeat candidates that are either wanting to go up to a bigger district, and they come to you and say, hey, I've been here X amount of years.
We
I want to
see-
either go up or I want to start to retire and hang out in this smaller district.
Not many do that.
Okay.
But I can tell you that we see repeat candidates. I mean, they'll apply some places and then move forward. We do also see individuals who apply to too many places. And we call that papering the state, and they can't possibly be a match for every district. And the challenge maybe is that they don't have a job somewhere. The
And we
key
try to
that is why.
educate, I'm sorry, Tom, and we try to educate them at our workshops, that you just can't apply for every position. You've got to be a fit for
Yes.
that district and that community. And so we try to educate them on that.
And I think it's, if we go back to our longevity piece, how long our folks have stayed in places, I think it's because of that fit.
Right.
Because we're actually looking and listening to what a district wants and trying to match the candidate with those successes in the past with that. And so that's the definition of it.
How many-
Excellent question.
Yeah, how many candidates do you ever get that say, hey, I'm really interested in this district, and I see that they want somebody that I know that's going to be good for an assistant? Do you ever get approached that way, saying, I really want to bring along some of my people with me?
Then they need to, we have them, have those people apply through the process the same as everybody else. But this is not a
Makes
situation
sense.
where we'd have somebody tell us it must bring my best friend or whatever that is. No.
That's good to know.
They have to apply directly through the process. They just refer them to it.
Okay,
Because we don't want them to derail that other process. We
So
won't let
true.
that happen. Okay. Great. Other questions?
I just have one more. You talked about a guarantee.
Yes.
If the search wasn't successful, let's say we hire somebody and they leave in a year. and
We'll
you
do
have-
it again, same thing, no cost, no
That
cost.
guarantee is still there?
Yeah.
All right, great, thank you.
Yep,
I had a few questions.
please.
When you conduct your surveys, I've been asking this for everybody.
Okay.
We have 2 dual language programs in Urbana. So do you include translation services for your surveys? Because we have Spanish and French.
Yes, I
Is it-
mentioned that earlier, I think.
Oh,
that
okay, I
we can
missed that,
put them in
sorry.
other languages.
Okay.
We've even had, Mandarin Chinese, and we've had quite a few languages. Now, Mary has had some experience with the Spanish and some with the French, but not too many others, but we can do it.
Okay, and it's
Yeah.
included as part of your package?
Mhm.
Okay,
All's
great.
part of the package. Yep.
Okay.
They just designate which language they want to answer it in.
Okay.
And we've even had interpreters at meetings when we did the in-district interviews of people to help us with, ask that question, what is their answer? Now, translate it, please. And that's something usually you have staff here do that or help us with that, if you have that.
I would like to say we'd volunteer them. We do have staff, but yes, I think that's a really important component
Okay,
to the interviews.
okay.
Also, I think John already asked my next question about declining. Do you, sorry, let me make sure I get the right one. Do you consult with the teachers' unions reps in the different districts
Yes.
when you're interviewing candidates?
We do it, what we do is have them, and if you have us do that first focus group time, we would have them as a group of their own. And if you tell us who they are, I'll call and talk to them.
Okay.
That's not an issue, even if you don't have the other part. And at the end, if you have the groups with the interviews,
Mhm.
there's people from those groups should be involved.
Okay. And lastly, since you're ISB, I'm sure you probably are aware with people locally, not locally, but I mean statewide people, if there's an active investigation against somebody or a grievance or something that hasn't been resolved against one of your candidates, do you look into that further to
Yes.
even if it's something that hasn't gotten to, legal
Conviction?
levels? Yeah, but
we
just
look-
a
That's similar back
complaints.
to the question that Ms. Patton asked about
Mhm.
how do we know? But yeah, I'd be really suspect of that. And sometimes it's unfounded,
Mhm.
but sometimes it's not, and we've got to be careful.
Okay.
And we let you know if it's something unfounded. We'll talk to the board president and say, hey,
Or
we
the
think
clerk.
we've got this good candidate,
But there could be an issue.
but there could be an
And they have to
issue,
speak
so
to- yeah.
we kind of put it back on John here to.
Well, or the candidate
Yeah,
has to tell
right.
us.
And all of us have been on the IESA Board of Directors.
Yes.
And from that
We
point,
know.
and being able to reach out to all parts of the state.
Okay.
And talk to people around the candidates who
Mhm.
have applied.
Mhm.
So,
Okay.
Does that help you?
okay.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay.
More? Yeah,
All
another
right.
question.
Oh, Paul, I'm
Please.
sorry.
So this board and this community have committed themselves to dealing with issues of racial equity in a very strong manner, and it's essential that the candidate that we present have a demonstrated capability of dealing with those issues in their work history. So how would you as a team go about vetting
We,
candidates?
in fact, is one of the questions that you'll find in the brochure itself has them write an answer to how have you, tell us of your experience with the diversity. And diversity is not just ethnicity. I mean, diversity is social, economical, and a lot of things. But we would definitely want to have someone who could, if that's your desire and need, we want them to match that. So we'll be careful to look into that, too. Anything you tell us, just like that, it's a really prime example of what you maybe
You would put in
need
the
here.
brochure. That would
And,
be a
and
statement
tell us
somewhere
to
in the
dig
brochure.
for it, and we will do that. You bet.
It's about exhibited success where they are. What
The
what
real
have
deal,
they?
the real
I mean,
thing.
what have you done? Just don't tell me what you've done. It's that
Or that you'd
exhibited
like to do.
success piece.
Well, I mean, the other bit is how do you ensure that the candidate was responsible for that success in their prior
We check
district
that
and
with
not
others.
somebody working underneath them?
We check that with others.
That's that deeper conversation.
Mhm.
All right.
With
It's-
other
It's
people.
artifacts, it's evidence, it's what's been produced.
Okay.
Making sure I'm not cutting anyone off. We are like right on time. So, perfect. So I
Yeah.
want to thank you for
Thank
coming
you.
and then,
One final comment, we want to come and help you. We really, we make some money doing this some, but it disappears at Christmas like that at home with 13 grandkids. But we really enjoy doing this work. We really enjoy it, and I get a charge out of it, and especially when we're competing with 4 other firms, we want this. We really do. So my point by that is that we'll do our best to help you if you choose us. Okay? Did I say that before?
all right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, very good. Thank you. Nice meeting you. Thank you.
Tom, another funny thing?
Oh, my. We got it. Yeah, are we taking grandkids? We got 5 of them up there. Our son-in-law teaches.
Your com-
Oh, really? Okay. Oh, yeah,
Okay, board members, while we're at break, the next interview starts at 6:45, so we have time to fill out the rating sheet, so please do that. And then we'll go from there. For people that I didn't get a chance to, we cannot take any action tonight, but we can talk, and so since there's 2 interviews tonight, we may have some initial discussions. And our proposed course of action is that if we get to a point of doing a straw poll tonight, fine, but if not, we would perhaps try to have a special meeting, a very quick special meeting, before the end of the week, whereby we instruct somebody other than Preston, Preston's staying out of this search, to negotiate a contract with firm X, and then that would be brought to us at our meeting, regular meeting on Tuesday, so that we can, as you can see, the timeline is tight for everybody. And so that would give us a time to have the firm in place by the end of the meeting Tuesday night. All right. So go ahead and fill out your rating sheet, and we'll let the next group get themselves assembled. Yes.
Yeah. That's right, and colder the night after.
That's right. Nobody will be going anywhere. I'm from the Quad Cities, St. Johnsburg, Peoria.
I'm from Peoria.
Snow was blowing around on the way down. It was a little dicey in spots.
My wife called me when we got here and said, the garage door won't go down. Garage door won't close. So I walked her through it. And then when she started getting mad because it wasn't working, I said, I'll take care of it when I get home.
Just stay home.
Peggy, are you close enough that you mind if we go ahead and get started? All right, great. Like to now turn this over to McPherson and Jacobson. Our next, I know we're a little bit ahead of schedule, but I don't think anybody will mind getting out of here a little bit quicker tonight, considering the weather. So we'll go ahead and turn it over to you, and you can go ahead and get started.
Great, thank you. We want to get some materials out here. I'm not sure how much you got in advance, but we have all the materials for you in paper form.
Well, I don't know what everything is. This is what we have.
So are we ready to begin?
Yes.
All right, well, thank you for being so patient. This is your 5th in a row, which that takes a lot of sitting and listening over several days, so we appreciate that. So we'll try to give you something to charge up the big finish here. I'm Dr. Lloyd Kilmer. It's my partner, Dr. John Clausen. He'll be introducing himself here in a moment. We come to you from the state of Illinois. I was a professor and administrator at Western Illinois University, and we both taught classes at the Moline and Macomb campuses and also up in Lake County. So we had a cohort of superintendent and doctoral students up at Lake County. So we did a lot of driving around, met a lot of kids, young people, and taught on television a lot. And I had 26 years as a K-12 teacher and administrator in the Omaha area, and have a consulting company at the present time. Been retired for about 18 months from Western, and excited to be here to represent McPherson and Jacobson. Let me talk about our other team member who isn't here tonight. He has a day job commitment. That's Gary McAndrew, and Gary has been a very active consultant for us, done a lot of searches in eastern Iowa, typically mostly smaller districts. Gary is a vice president for a bank in the Dubuque area, and is their VP of Human Resources. He was also a board member in the West Dubuque school system for several years, and president of the Booster Club, and about everything you could do in a high school. He's got some very athletic kids, and so you automatically get to join everything and donate a lot of money. So he's been very active with that and brings kind of a business perspective to this team. And I'll let John go ahead and introduce himself.
My name's John Clausen. Take all night to tell you what I've done. But I was a teacher and coach in inner city Peoria for 13 years, and then moved on to be a principal in Tazewell County, and then I was a superintendent in 2 different districts for a total of 17 years in Tazewell County. Retired from that in 2006 and went to work at Western with Dr. Kilmer. And like you said, we taught a little bit of everything, a little bit everywhere. Then I got out of there, and well, I tried to get out in 2012, but they finally let me go in 2013. And I started working for the state as a director of the Area 3 Learning Technology Center. Nobody's ever heard of that, have they? No. Well, there were a bunch of them around the state, but they've all kind of collapsed when the funding collapsed. But I worked with 135 school districts with technology from basically Peoria to Quincy, that area. And worked with superintendents, developed tech plans, things like that, helped them out, get with E-rate, things like that. And right now, besides this, I'm currently president of ICE, Illinois Computing Educators. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's a statewide organization that helps teachers and administrators. We have a conference next month in Schaumburg. Last year we had 6,500 people. So we have attend over 3 days. So we deal with a lot of administrators and a lot of teachers, so I've kind of been all over the place with this. But it gives me a good perspective on different things. So that's our background. I know we're here to talk about the search for a superintendent primarily, and then other positions as well. But one of the things we want to know is, like, what are you looking for in a search firm?
While the others are thinking, I may be the only, Ruth Ann has been a board member where we switched, but I'm the only board member that's been here since we sought a superintendent from outside the district before, in addition to any internal candidates that might come forward. We really want someone who can get a lot of the legwork done so that we are faced with a decision of choosing between three to six highly qualified people, and we want to make sure that they're all highly qualified, but matched to Urbana.
Okay.
That, in a nutshell.
I'm kind of looking for someone who's going to continue with our racial equity and restorative justice that we have started on track with, but we really need someone, excuse me, to come in and kind of take over the helm of that as far as trainings and continuing to look into the future with that for our district.
We're looking for a firm who could help us be as transparent as possible with the community on the process. We understand that there's going to be restrictions with regards to candidate pools if we're too transparent too soon, but the community demands the maximal amount of transparency with regards to the process.
Good. Okay, you're checking off all my bullet points.
Yeah, that's right.
Good.
And I guess the only thing I would add is that, one that would really help us cast a wide net, maybe identifying some candidates that otherwise we might not have come to our attention.
Have you thought about how wide a net? Have you talked about that internally, whether you want to do a regional, statewide, national search? National. Okay, good, thank you.
All right, good. Well,
This is a LUDA district that has, you're Illinois, so I don't have to explain LUDA, that has prided itself on academic excellence, we live in a competitive environment with other public school districts as well as private schools, and so we're a diverse population, though, very diverse. Roughly 1/3 white, 1/3 black, and the remaining third made up of Asians and Hispanics and several other minority groups. And we have a need to make sure that all succeed.
all right, thank you. Well, wanted to start off by mentioning a few things about McPherson and Jacobson. We are one of the top 3 national firms. Since 1991, we have placed 725 superintendents. And during that time, we have, I believe we get over 75% of the administrators that we've hired in the last 5 years are still in the position, because someone mentioned you wanted someone to stick around, I think. So over the last 5 years, over 75% of the administrators are still in the positions they were hired for. In the last 10 years, over 50% of the superintendents are in the same positions that they were hired for. And over the last 15 years, almost 50% of the positions that we've filled have stayed. So the places where we have placed administrators, that seems to be a good fit. People want to stay. And as Lloyd mentioned, Gary in this area has had 20 successful searches. And I think most, I forget the number that he had, but well, I think of the last 20 that he had, all but one is still in the position, and the one that wasn't in the position unfortunately passed away. So he's got a pretty good track record in that area as well. And you mentioned transparency, and that is one of the things that we push here, because we want everything to be transparent. I've been a school superintendent, I've been in this business for 45 years, and I know when you bring in someone new and it's not an open process, it's not transparent, you already have people that are not happy with what's going on. So, I mean, even in my area, even recently, that's happened. So that's important. But we want it to be transparent to a point. Now, when we bring someone in, and if we have stakeholder groups, you know, we want them to know, we get them involved, we want them to know everything that we know about the person, we want to get their input. But when we get it down to finalists, if we get it down to semifinalists, like you mentioned 3 to 6, if we get down to 6, we're not going to be transparent on what the names of those 6 are. We don't get to that point until you get down to the finalists. Because if you got people that are interviewing for especially if they're local, you know, you don't want to have their name out there and then all of a sudden you don't hire them and then their board's looking at them like, what's going on here? So that's a big push that we have. We not only recruit, we not only post these positions, but we actively recruit. Like I said, we're nationwide. We've got over 100 consultants. So, you know, Lloyd and I would be good contacts for people in the Illinois area. But we've got people in California, Nevada, you said Tucson?
Arkansas, Arizona.
Just all over the country. So we've got lots of contacts, and we can find that, if we can identify the type of person that you're looking for, you know, we probably have someone on staff that knows someone that may fit that criteria. And that would be beneficial. Oh, and we were hired by the California State School Association to work on all of their searches. So that's pretty...
It's busy.
It's a
Busy
pretty
place.
good, yeah. And the other thing that I think is pretty important is that right in our slogan, our slogan is it's all about the kids. So what we do when we look for people, we want to make sure that those people are going to be the right people to help the kids in the schools. And I know that you need different types of people in different types of schools. Like I said, I worked in Peoria, and I know we were just having a conversation about that and restorative justice, because I heard something about it on TV today. But a successful superintendent in one place may not be the right person in another place, and we understand that. I think we're going to talk about a different, we have 5 phases to our search. And I think Lloyd's going to take you on to the first part.
Right. So when we think about surveying all the kids, and Mr. Dimmitt mentioned that, we have a lot of variety of needs in the schools today. And every child comes to school sometimes not ready to be there, sometimes without the supports they really need. And it's our job as leaders to make sure that their needs are met. Every child deserves a great leader of their schools. So that's what we're looking for here. You obviously had great leaders in the past. You kind of brought them back again here during your current situation. So we're going to look for that person that can not only do the administrative work, but when you have challenges in a district, and you're certainly not the only place that's had challenges with leadership, that sort of thing, making sure they have the right emotional intelligence to deal with the needs for your community as well. Because this is not just an island in the middle of a city, it is the community. And it's a great town with the university and the rest of it. We should be able to find people that aren't even thinking about looking for a job. We make calls all the time. Have you thought about applying? Well, no, I really hadn't. Well, you need to, because we think this might be a great opportunity for you. So it is just the job seekers, it's the ones that maybe haven't thought of that. And I guess working in the university, we've trained a lot of people in the region, and we can reach out to them in that way. So how do you start out? You got to decide what you're shopping for. And the criteria will be specific to your region enter your school district, but also you got to understand that the market is very challenging. There are fewer candidates for you to choose than you even had 5 years ago because fewer and fewer people are seeking those leadership opportunities. Now, you'll have a good pool. We'll assure you that that will happen. But we have to understand what you really want. And so we'll take you through a process to sharpen that. You've got a sense of what you're looking for, but you have to switch to what do you want to wish for? What is the 5-year plan for Urbana 116? What's it going to look like and sound like down the road? You're the keepers of that. We'll set up a timeline. Typically 2 to 3 months is you're in a great shape in terms of time here. This is the season. You have the challenge of 3 spots to fill, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. You've got your superintendent and 2 staff positions. And some of these can happen concurrently. It's not like you have to do one and then start on the next one and the next one. And there's going to be a pool that may not fit your criteria for superintendent, but they may make a great human resources officer for you. So we'll kind of work these together in that fashion. We need about 30 days for advertising in order for it to stick in the usual venues, the AASA journals and some of those sorts of places that people look at all the time. We get a lot of activity on our website as well. So think too, when you're visiting, what are you going to be willing to pay? That's always an issue. You've got a certain market around here. We can help you establish what that market is like and decide what you can afford and what you want to use to draw the very best candidate to your area. I will tell you, you say nationwide search. Well, how does that work with Illinois? In the searches I work with, in every one of them, we had people that applied from out of state who wanted to come back for a variety of reasons. Family, mom and dad needed some help, wanted to just get back to Illinois. Houses are too expensive where I live right now. And there are a host of reasons why people would choose to come back to the Midwest. Okay, so we'll look for those as well. We also will work on trying to establish those stakeholder groups. And the way those work is you identified, let's say, a community group made up of community leaders from the Rotary and city officials, that sort of thing. We have a stakeholder group. We have a group with teachers and a group with administrators. And the most fun one is the group when you talk to the students. So when you go to the high school and the middle school and say, what do you really want? They don't hold back usually. They've got a pretty good idea what they're shopping for, but they're very insightful, and they are the customers. They're the ones that will be closest to this. Even though the superintendent maybe doesn't have that direct role with kids, he probably or she should be recognizable to the students that we're all in one team, not just working in a central office and calling off school. So they get to do a lot this month. So we'll also work the social media. Both John and myself are pretty adept at LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook and all the regular sites that we establish as a company as well. And it's a great way to network and get the word out in a big hurry. You can advertise in a variety of different spots, and they're included in your packet here. But there's just a few that are probably really good ones to advertise in. Newspapers are usually pretty expensive and don't glean a lot of response. So the first phase then is really getting ready and establishing what you're shopping for and where do you want to go to look for those excellent candidates. Then phase 2 is the stakeholder input stage. So we ask people about the strengths of the community, strengths of the schools, what are the issues that they're facing, what are going to be the characteristics of the new superintendent. It's a pretty simple focus group process. Typically, people are very responsive to that, though. They've got some pretty good ideas about what they see as the strengths of the school district. So this isn't just about the person that you're looking for. It's reinforcing for your eventual hire. You're going to have all this data from these stakeholder groups that say, yeah, Urbana is a great place to work. It's a great place to live. The children succeed. And that then helps that person say, I'm making a good choice here. And that's also good for us as when we recruit, we call up and say, well, this is what we've learned from this process. And you're going to have a really strong, let's say, foundation, for instance. I don't know if you have a foundation, but I'm sure you probably do. And they're eager and willing to invest in some of the technologies that kids are looking for today. just as an example. Then we recruit, get on the phone, get on email, and just contact all the people we know from our network, both on the university side and on the work side. We always ask our colleagues to say, if you're not interested, is there somebody you think that might be? And give us that individual. So you indicated you want a nationwide search. If there's a criteria, for instance, that, let's just say, for instance, you're looking for a minority or something that is important, we'll make sure that our consultants know that. And certainly there are more candidates in certain parts of the country than there are others in terms of minority candidates. But we'll make sure that they know that if you do know a person that would fit that bill, make sure you get it to us quickly, because they'll be in high demand. So we go through the resumes, we go through the data, we go through the interviews, and we will consult together, the three of us. We'll split up who we find and conduct the interviews with each one of the individuals, which takes about an hour per person. It's a pretty time-intensive process. But we ask them a series of questions, and the last one is there anything, most important one, is there anything that if you were hired would be an embarrassment or detriment to the Urbana School District? And they better be ready to say yes in a hurry, because we don't want to go down that road. Okay. So that's a 3D process. So if I talk to the school board president for a candidate, I'll say, who else can I talk to? Because typically people put in the resume to people that will say good things, but I want to hear from others. So it'll be one person, then a referral to a second person, and a referral to a third person to get the full picture of the individual.
And that sometimes brings in surprises.
Yes, it does.
Because when you get to that third person, they're not expecting the call, and sometimes you find out things that you weren't supposed to find out. So pretty in-depth, but it is time-consuming as
Yeah.
well.
And then at the end, when you get to the final candidate, we'll do the criminal and financial background to make sure that there's nothing awry in that part as well. So that's phase 2. Phase 3 is getting ready for the interviews. And boards have a certain personality about how they like to do interviews. And you indicated it's been a while since you've had somebody from the outside. But you want to make sure if there are internal candidates that get treated the same way as anybody else in the process. But we'll meet with you and develop some interview questions you think will be especially germane for you as board members to ask these individuals. We'll have a big pool of them. You can pick and choose, and we'll sort and separate and come up with the greatest hits out of that, and then compare the applicants against the selection criteria. Then meeting 3 with the board, we'll go through and match them up and bring a pool of candidates with an overview of each of them on the short list of applicants. And the short list could be maybe 10 or 12. It could be a shorter number. It depends on how you want to go about it. But we'll put together that report so you can then, if you wish, bring in maybe 6 to 8 individuals electronically to answer a quick 3-question interview, or we can tape them and give the tapes to you at a very nominal charge. So the 3 questions they're pretty basic. They are: tell us about the educational activities and programs you developed and what was the results, the outcomes of those programs. Describe your leadership style and how it would serve this position in this community. And if you were hired, how would you spend the first 90 days on the job? And that'll give you a snapshot. Most people are pretty nervous when they're in front of a camera for the first time, so it's not like a real interview in front of you where they get to present themselves in their full glory, but it will give you an idea of what they've thought about and what they've done and how they're going to project themselves to you if they get into that final group. If you want to do face-to-face interviews by Skype with some number of individuals, we can arrange that. So you can spend an hour with people at a distance and call that down to the 3 or 4 that you really think are the best of that group. So we try to make it as convenient as we can for both you and the candidates so they get a chance to express themselves and bring in some data that maybe just doesn't show up on the resume, the pieces of paper, and the standard questions. So any questions about the process so far, steps 1, 2, and 3? Page 9 in your book has kind of the short version of that. And then behind that are all the details of each of the phases. Okay, so if, we've got some candidates lined up. I'm going to turn over to John, and he can talk to you a little bit about the interview and finishing out the
Well,
steps.
the interview process, two things I wanted to point out. One, that even though we have the search down on paper like this, each search is unique, it's different. We just try to fit your needs, go whatever direction it takes us that you want us to go. So we don't have just a boilerplate process. The interview process, and I think you mentioned it, you wanted us to take care of the details, the time-consuming things. And that's what we do. That's a lot of what we do. In the interview process, I mean, we will work to establish and coordinate the process and the visitations of the people, so we'll set up all the schedules. If we bring in spouses or significant others, we will set up the schedules for them. We will make sure everything is, that you guys don't have to worry about that. Those are the details. If we get down to all the contacts with the candidates, we take care of, down to semifinalists to the finalists, all of that. We set up the interview the way that you want it set up, with questions that you want. We'll get questions from stakeholders, I think you mentioned, and we'll make sure that you get the input on what all, we'll summarize all of that and get it to the board to make sure you understand what the different stakeholder groups are looking for. And then if you want to modify your questions or the interview process according to those, we can help you do that. We contact all the applicants for everything. Those that we do not interview, we contact them and make sure that they know that they're not going to be one of the final ones. We meet with the board. Well, we'll go through the interview process, and then if you have questions, we try to support you on that. If we get it down to, as I mentioned before, semifinalists, they will meet only with the board. They won't meet with the stakeholder groups. We get down to the finalists, then we can meet however you want to do that. And then after we have the process, we have the interview, then when we will meet with you if you want. There's an additional fee for that. I think it's $200 of negotiations for the contract. If you want us involved in that, we'd be more than happy to do that, since we do have some experience in that. We can take care of that. So that's basically the interview process. We set the whole thing up. We've got the questions for you based on the input that you gave us and the stakeholders gave us. And then we're just there to support you during that whole process.
We will work with a point of contact that would be the board secretary, or whoever you designate to be the communication person, so that we can do the logistics and you don't have to set up dinners and pick up rides and that sort of thing.
So when you're using the term semifinalist, I know I heard that number was 6 to 8 or something like that. And then you were using finalist, and I'm trying to hear if there's an S on the end of finalist.
Finalists.
Or finalist.
Well, that's
one.
up to you. I mean, that's up to you. That's
Okay.
what we said. If you want 3 finalists, we'll have 3 finalists. If you want 2, we'll have 2. If you want 4, we'll have 4. It's just that each finalist, each day of the interview, bringing that finalist in, that's a day out of your lives. So, I mean, it's taking the person around, visiting the schools, visiting the teachers, visiting the community, and then ending up at the end of the day with an interview with you to see. I mean, that's a typical way to do that. So it's a time-consuming process. I went through that one time up in the suburbs where they interviewed 8 people, and it was 3 days for each person. That's crazy. I enjoyed some good food during that time.
But
And it might be driven by
you don't
your
have a problem.
candidates, too.
You don't have a problem if we are insisting on more than one.
No,
Two
no,
or-
no, no.
I don't think we'd ever have more than 3, but
I think it's a good idea to get it down to 2 or 3.
Okay.
I think 1's not enough. I think you never know what's going to happen there.
Right.
I was just making sure I was hearing you right, that,
And then even if we get it down to we have the 3, we get it down to the 1, we don't notify the other 2 until after that signature's on the paper.
Right.
because there's nothing worse than finding out you were number 2 and you got selected.
Yeah.
So we're transparent, but at that point, it's confidential.
Yeah. And we haven't dealt with any agents yet, but in some of the bigger markets, superintendents are getting agents much like coaches do. And so we haven't had to do that quite yet, but there's one other wrinkle that you can do, and we will offer you a survey that you can send out to the community. We can do it in multiple languages. I don't know how many you have represented in your community, but
At least 3.
at least 3. So we can make sure that that goes out in that form. Some community members don't feel comfortable in speaking with you or anybody else in the school system, but they might respond to a survey, and we will compile all that. And of course, if there's any really negative or things identified by name, we'll cull those things out. But we'll basically give you that data along with the stakeholder comments as well. So you get a variety of different, and we could run it through your Facebook page too if you wanted to. So I think there's a lot of ways to reach your constituents so they can have a stake in the process.
I think 3's not too bad. I down by Dunlap, I think they had 26 languages. They had a lot.
But Rock Island has 44.
Really? Yeah. And then, so that's phase 4, the interview process. And like I said, we do all the legwork for you. And you just have to come in here and sit and listen, just like you're doing right now, and then make a decision. But after that, after we get the candidate signed, phase 5 is we will help you set up, we will ask you for performance objectives for the candidates. What do you expect them to do? You mentioned restorative justice. You mentioned equity. I mean, to me, those would probably be 2 of the top performance objectives you're going to set for this new person. And then, okay, so that's fine. That's what you want. That's what you're looking for. Then the next question is, how would you know when you get that? How will you recognize if that person's successful? A lot of times you set up objectives, but there's no rubric, if you will, for how did they meet those objectives? Did they meet those objectives? And then once we do that, here's what we want. Here's how we know it's been accomplished. We give that to the new superintendent, and that new superintendent then develops a plan to accomplish those objectives. So we will be with you throughout the year during that process. And another good point that we didn't point out yet is that if for any reason at all, a candidate does not last for that first year.
2 years.
2 years, I'm sorry. First 2 years, doesn't stick around for 2 years, for whatever reason, we will do the whole thing all over again with nothing more than the cost for
Advertising the expense part.
the expense, the actual expenses. But for us, there would be no charge, just the actual expenses. And then our timeline, if you look on page 19 of the booklet, we just kind of show you there are things that we do it's kind of what we've talked about already, but at the beginning of the search, we get everything ready, the advertising, and then when a formal timeline's established, application information is posted, and then we get the stakeholder groups together, and then when the applications come into the office, we go through them. At the closing date, all the completed files are forwarded to us, and then we review and preview the pre-interview process. And then we provide information to the board on all the applicants. We don't get rid of any. We keep everybody there and we let you know. But we will compile a list of who we think best meets your guidelines and what you're looking for. And then after the board selects the candidates, we will set up all the interviews, make all the contacts, do everything we've already talked about. So that's the timeline. If you look on page 21, 22, 23, I think, it's got a more detailed, but here again, this is not a boilerplate. This is just what we normally do, but we'll modify that to fit whatever your needs or whatever your timeline is. Any questions on that?
I mean, to that end, how do you see the search for the other two positions dovetailing with the primary search?
Well,
I was just going to get to that.
Go
So
ahead.
thank you for the setup. So what we will do is to compile this pool, and the conversation will be not only for the superintendent position, but will also indicate that there are some staff positions available. And if you want to further refine those job descriptions between now and the time that the search begins, this would be a good time to do it. If you want to move some responsibilities around, those sorts of things, so we can say, even though you may not be interested in being a superintendent right now, we have this great opportunity to be in HR or student services or whatever you have in those other two positions. So we'll kind of do those concurrently. As a firm, we're on retainer to the Dallas Public Schools, Seattle, and Tucson to help them with their search for staff people. So when somebody leaves, they call McPherson and Jacobson, we initiate a search for their staff members. And these are districts that have a lot of turnover, very large districts, of course, a lot of positions to fill. So instead of starting over again, they have put the firm on retainer. So we have a lot of experience with the staff positions as well as superintendents. And even state officials as well. Did a couple searches in the Southwest for the state superintendent positions. So I think we can cover those things. We'll just have to do it a little bit by feel. If you decide that you want us to compile some lists for these positions, maybe get a preliminary look and wait for the superintendent to come on board to actually initiate the search and hire his or her people, that's great. But at least they'll have a running head start on it, because again, timing will be challenging because the season really runs through May, though some will say mid-July, but a lot of positions aren't going to switch over because people have to lock into contracts and can't get out of
and
old obligations.
And as you know, the two staff positions, the HR and the student services, a lot of those people are in that position right now that are going to apply for a superintendent's job. So it may be a case where they've already applied, we see their background and they're just a good fit. You might be a larger district or you might be somewhere that they want to relocate to. So they may just be in that pile. If not, we'll just expand the search.
To that end, you ran through the timeline. Are we realistic in hoping that we would have a superintendent on board to start July 1, but have a superintendent selected and ready to go by the end of May, so that the month of June could be devoted into filling these other two positions?
I think
With
that's
the
reasonable.
superintendent having input.
February, March, April, yeah. 4 months.
It's not too fast. Okay.
No, it's not too fast. It's really pretty typical. This is not unusual in terms of the time frame. There aren't many districts. Once in a while, you'll have somebody who decides they're going to retire at the end of the school year, and so they'll start up a search in November, but you can't start too early either because people aren't ready to start thinking about making that move. So I think we'd be pretty comfortable in saying we can get that done.
But they do. I mean, when I first started, they started in April looking. Now they do go back to November or even the beginning of the year. Yeah. It's because there's more and more people looking, like you said.
Another question I have is, let's say that we have a strong candidate we've come to agreement on as a board, but for whatever reason we're unable to reach a contract with that individual. What happens at that point?
We can say to them, here are the parameters, and, this is the ceiling on the benefits and on the salary and this sort of thing. We really like you, but if this doesn't fit your needs as a family, as an individual, we're sorry, maybe next time, and that's why you want to have 2 or 3 final candidates, any of which could really fill your needs. Maybe one's a little stronger than the other, but you always want to have a number 2.
And I think, I think coming into this position that the only question would probably be on the salary. But if we've got that spelled out, that it's going to be in this range to begin with, I don't think people are going to apply and expect to get more than that.
Mm-hmm. Are you going to have any educational requirements, like a doctorate in hand? Have you thought about? Some districts are very.
We haven't thought about it, but our last 3 superintendents, if not 4, have all been PhDs.
PhDs or just doctorates?
Or ED, at least they have
ED,
doctors.
ED.
Okay,
EDs, sorry.
that's okay. That's something to let us know, so that as we're searching, wouldn't maybe necessarily preclude somebody from being in the pool, but if that's what your druthers are, you know, that obviously going to shrink it as well. The other thing I was thinking too, driving here, is because they have a great program here at Illinois, we know a lot of the folks there. This positions you to say, oh, you've got your specialist, you've got experience as a superintendent, guess what? We can also make it happen and maybe support you in your pursuit of the doctorate. And this has happened in a number of districts, a number of individuals that we've worked with as doctoral students. They just said, though, we'll sweeten the pie so that you're here, we'll invest in you, we expect this out of you, but you get a chance to develop professionally, and it doesn't get any more convenient than driving across town to go to class rather than cross country.
And I like your question about getting it done by the end of May, because as a new superintendent, if you've got 2 staff members at that level, you want to make sure you can work with them when they come in. Because that doesn't always, I've seen it not work.
Okay, any about the process? Okay. All right, so then what is it going to cost us? You have a separate packet for the cost breakdown. Yeah, it's got to divide in you just want a superintendent. There's a cost for that, so it would be $12,900 for phases 1 through 5. The amount including expenses is $18,420. Candidate interview expenses are not included in this amount. Now, what does that mean? If you decide you've got a candidate, you want to go visit their school district. This happened to me along the way, where the other school district came and visited for a day. I talked to staff members and community members and this sort of thing. That would be an additional cost to facilitate that on-site. And there's pros and cons to doing that sort of thing. Obviously, that person's going to have to say, I'm applying. You get to see them in real time. You get to see and feel that. But that's why there's that little caveat. That includes the advertising items that are listed under there. The stakeholder input survey in English. If we go 3 languages, we'd have to increase the price of that a little bit to make sure that that fits your community. Then fees and expenses for one assistant superintendent. There's a breakdown there. It's $14,900. The big thing is, though, if we are going to be hired to do all 3 searches in one way, shape, or fashion, there'll be a 70% discount on the kind of the retail price for each one of those searches. So that comes down for all 3 searches. We do all 3, $28,000. The total amount, including expenses, of $37,750.
Is everybody in the right booklet for that? That's the one that's got all 3? Okay.
And if you've got any questions about the breakdown on the cost, that sort of thing, I'd be glad to follow up with you, because sometimes it's, as you're doing your shopping, looking at the cost from other search firms, maybe it doesn't all translate from one to the other. We'd be glad to clarify that if need be. We'll be glad to match any competitor's price. You think we're worth it? Maybe the retail price looks a little higher. Tom is willing to work with you. So Tom Jacobson is the president of the company. He's also a professor at the University of Nebraska, Kearney. I'm a Husker as well, so that's even better. He teaches online, so he can do all his work online and here, but he coordinates all the national searches as well. We also have the vice president of the company, Steve Joel, is the superintendent of Lincoln Public Schools in Nebraska. He does like the big ones in Las Vegas and Charlotte Mecklenburg, so he's used to things like in Las Vegas. They had their community input session at an arena. There were so many people that wanted to come. So if you can imagine being like at a basketball game, but you're interviewing, that was kind of the setting. So I don't think you probably have that much response to it, but there's that whole range of supports that are available from the other individuals in our company to make sure this goes for you.
And we have like 1/4 of the consultants are minority and 1/4 are female.
Yes.
So we're diverse in that aspect as well. And of course, they have other contacts that maybe we don't have, but they're from different places, different backgrounds, so it just expands the pool that we have access to. Questions?
Any final thoughts?
Sure. I mean, this is a very diverse community, and eliminating any gaps in performance on many levels with regards to racial subgroups or any other subgroups is vital to our candidate. They have demonstrated capability of doing that
Okay.
coming in. So how would you basically vet a candidate's ability with regards to racial equity?
Well, one is, let's look at the data. Let's see what's happened during their time as an assistant superintendent in a smaller district, for instance. What have you done with closing that achievement gap, that graduation gap, and eliminating some of those gaps that you have in discipline and those sorts of things where you're trying to make sure that kids of color do not disproportionately get more severe punishments? That's a tough one. Now, you may not get all that package, but we would look for individuals that have the right dispositions to take on that challenge. You have to want to do it. And you have to have some skills and some techniques that really work. Look at the data. What really works to close that gap? Doing what's been done in the past academically probably is not going to get the job done with underserved youth. You're going to have to reach out to them in different ways and to work with their parents and their grandparents and their community in ways that maybe schools have not done in the past. And you've got to have that creativity that they're going to bring to the board. And they may not have all the details, but they want to come and make a difference. That's what good administrators want to do. I want to come in, I want to make a difference, and move that needle going in the right kind of direction.
And ask that question in your final interview, because, I mean, you can see from their response, how authentic they are, how passionate they are about that.
Board members, questions?
I have one, if you don't mind. I know you have a strong presence in many states. You mentioned California, that you're on retainer to do all of their searches. I was wondering if you give priority to candidates who've been affiliated with the Broad Academy, which is, has a strong presence in California, and if you give them priority in candidate searches you do elsewhere.
Nope,
Okay.
not really. no.
Okay. Well, all right. That's fine. Good question.
Other board members?
We will be working exclusively with you, though. We don't now, right now, any of the three of us have another obligation for a search, so you would have us full-time. We're not working on any other searches. We're fairly selective that way, and especially one as complex as this is going to be with three positions, it's going to take a lot of legwork. So we would be around here a lot this spring and early summer.
Ann, did you?
Did you already mention, I'm sorry, about the criminal background checks? Is that included in the fee?
Yes.
Okay.
On the finalists.
On the
In the finalists, okay, correct, sorry. As far as your stakeholder interviews, I've asked everybody this, do you consult with the teachers' unions, other community groups,
Yeah, we've got it listed in here, but we will consult with whoever you want. I mean, teachers, union, non-union, administrators, the community, business people, students, parents.
Non-classified staff, all your aides and that sort of thing. You got to decide how big a net you want to include in this conversation.
Okay.
I think it's important too, for instance, in Galena, when we were doing the search up there, we knew that there were a lot of Hispanic families and that sort of thing, all working in the service industries up there. But they were almost invisible in our process. So we're able to, I guess, talk to the right person at the right hotel who introduced us to a young lady who then helped commit a number of her friends to come to one of the stakeholder meetings, and it was outstanding. It gave us a whole different picture about their community than we had gotten from a number of the other stakeholder groups.
And then also, since you said you go back like 3 people, or you extend your search exponentially, however, you also look into the candidates, any current active investigations or grievances, even if they're not reaching the level of criminal or anything like that, but just complaints, you investigate all of that, and so there's no surprises for us?
Right, and that's why that we finished with that question. Is there anything in your background? Yeah, we try to be as thorough as we can. That's why we do the 3D, to get things that pop up that maybe normally wouldn't pop up. We do the research.
With the local papers and Google searches and the rest of it,
Mhm.
that we can ferret out. If there's been anything that has, if it's digital, we can probably find it. It's where you have really small communities where they don't have a really active digital, or they don't, a lot of places don't have newspapers now, so. But we do try to make sure that we're getting a full picture of this individual.
And then you would let us know if something obviously wasn't reaching, actual criminal levels, but you might consult with us and say, well, this is something that, it's
Right.
it's not seen
Right,
as
the last
serious
thing-
by some people, but we wanted to let you know, and is that something that you're not comfortable with
Right.
keeping going with this candidate? You would let us know about that sort of thing?
The
Okay.
last thing we want you to have is a surprise.
Okay.
Now, there are things such as, we had one candidate whose family had some very serious illnesses, and they got into some financial binds just because of medical costs. And eventually got around that and kind of made it back, but that kind of stain was there, and they had to explain it, so we took that to board and said, this person is not financially irresponsible. It was just one of those things that happened to this family that caused them to have a real strain on their finances. And said, oh, okay, well, they're a good candidate anyway, bring them in.
Okay. Thank you.
You look like you were thinking so.
I was just thinking of Google searches. Obviously, if you search social media or search online publications, you're going to see a picture of the district with mostly our challenges that we've had over the past year or two. That's not a complete picture. I mean, obviously, we want the candidate to embrace our challenges and help us through them, but we also want to present a more, a rounded picture of the district. So how would you, as a firm, help us do that to the candidate pool?
That is part of the stakeholders group, because when we come in, there's two reasons for those stakeholders groups. One is for you to sell, for you, the stakeholders in the area, to sell your school district to the candidate, to let them know what's really happening, because I know what you mean. If you come in, I remember the first job I interviewed for as a principal, all I ever saw was negative stuff in the newspaper for it. So I didn't apply. And then finally I did apply and went there, and I thought, there's nothing wrong with this. This is a great place. I stayed there 17 years, so it worked out pretty well. But that's, if you have a question, candidates can talk to the stakeholders, to the parents, to the teachers, to the other administrators, then they can get a real feel for what the place is like. And they'll know what, forget what's all, whatever you Google. Because we Google it, but still, you can't stop there. I mean, you've got to research either the place or the candidate. I mean, that's what we taught our students to do when we were at Western, And we also tell them, just because you're going to get hired by a place, that doesn't mean that's the place for you. It may sound good to come to Urbana, but a candidate may not be a good fit for you after all, and if it's not a good fit, don't take the job. If it's not a good fit for you guys, don't offer the job, of course, but that works both ways.
And we would work with your PR person, whoever handles your story, so that when we're ready to call and do the interviews, to make the calls, that sort of thing, we can give them the rest of the story. I would say, there's some challenges that these things do happen. It's one of the more unusual ones, but that's okay. It's not the end of the world.
Brenda, any
In my
questions?
mind, there's too much information, but that's okay. That's just the way the world is now. We just have to sort and separate the best we can.
I'm done.
Good. That question.
Go ahead.
I think I heard one of my questions answered earlier. Do you see any type of pattern on who your candidates will possibly be as far as location-wise? Like, do you have a history of knowing that most of your candidates come from 5 miles away of the district that they want to be in, 10 miles, 100, 200 miles. I mean, where, is there anything to lay your hands on saying that people so far out from this point are generally where
know-
the pool is saturated the most?
This is just anecdotal, but in smaller communities, I would say that. Larger communities, I would say it's different. People move around. They don't all come from one location, or they're not all local people, if that's what you're asking. But you might have, in this case, you might have people from anywhere across the country. Or you might have people from up north that come down who have similar backgrounds.
I would say the pattern wouldn't be necessarily demographic as much as experience. I would suspect that your candidates are going to have superintendent experience in a smaller community, have a proven track record, want to make that next step up, or maybe a staff person from a larger district who's had a lot of experience at the executive level is ready to take on that kind of role. And they're going to be looking for that next step, and this is very attractive. I had to do a search down south, and when you go downstate in Illinois, sometimes it's tough to convince everyone, yes, there's charm here, and there's great people, and you have a great experience, but it takes a little bit more arm twisting, but, recruiting to here, you're going to get a wide range for sure in the Midwest. I can almost guarantee that part, and I think you're going to get some from the coast too, just given this whole housing crisis that's going on in both coasts and even in the Southwest right now. You can't afford to live in your house anymore, but you get a great house.
And just remember, when he makes fun of Southern Illinois, people in Chicago think you guys are in Southern
Oh,
Illinois.
Yeah,
believe
yeah.
me, anything south of I-80,
South of
we all
80,
have
oh,
a
yeah.
twang. That's what I've experienced that with friends up there.
But Southern Illinois is a lot different from here.
It is.
At least they have some terrain.
Well, you begun to touch on, and I know I'm interrupting your
No,
questions,
it's
Ruth
okay.
Ann, but you begun to touch. We here locally think that we've got a great place to be. What's your enthusiasm level about Urbana?
I can go first. I love the fact you have a diverse population in your district. I think your kids in your schools will get the right kinds of experiences to prepare them for the workplaces they're going to. And without that, they're at a deficit. You have a commitment to academics. You've got a strong supporting community, and being in a college town is a great advantage. You have a lot of services you don't get other places. But it's one of these little jewels that people don't necessarily hear about much. It's not like some of the suburban districts in Chicagoland that have a lot of PR, a lot of news, for whatever reason it might be. At least in my mind, you're a little bit hidden, so we got to make sure that the whole world sees that, and I think it's an easy sell. What do you think?
I think this area is two things. One, I think it's a great area. One, I spent some time here. When did they close Chanute Air Force Base? That long ago? Told you it's been a while. I spent some time there. But also sports-wise, I played a lot of softball and stuff like that, and in all the tournaments, and people like this area, people like to come to this area, the people that I know that are involved in those types of things. And as far, like I said, I've been 45, 46 years involved with education in Illinois, central Illinois, and I don't really recall hearing negative things about the school system. I've heard a lot of negative things about a lot of schools, including one that's real close to me down there. But I don't get that from here. It's a university town. I've been here, I forget what they call it. That was part of the university, but some summer session for tech stuff.
Yeah, the tech conference they have there.
Yeah.
That's university types.
It's just get a positive idea of the whole place. There's some places when you bring the name up, you do get a negative vibe, but I don't really get that from here. And I was kind of surprised, like you said, that you had some problems here that resulted in this, because I don't recall hearing anything in years and years and years that I've been around.
Our last two outside superintendents came from Missouri, one from far southwest Missouri and the other one from St. Louis.
Mhm.
So, but we've had a series of internal promotions, and I think we as a board just felt it was time to not solely rely on the interior step-ups.
It's good to have a mix. Yeah, and I worked in Missouri for 6
Missouri.
years. It's Missouri. And yeah, there's some really good quality professionals down there as well, but,
What percentage do you see of people wanting to be candidates that are climbing the ladder, that might just only be 3 years, 4 years here and just want to jump around and make a great big huge resume for themselves, or the ones that want to find someplace to coast out into their retirement? Do you
Well, I
see
don't
an
know about
average of?
The coast out part, the average for an urban district is 3 years or
3.5, yeah.
3.5 years or something like that. But I think you're gonna get a lot of that, a lot of people that are trying to move up, but that's not a bad thing. And like I said, the last district I was in, I went there for 3 years. I said, I'm getting my PhD, I'm gonna go there for 3 years, then I'm going north. 17 years later, I retired from there because I got there and it was a good fit. And people, you know, if it's a good fit and you like them, they like you, they're gonna stick around. So I don't know that that's an easy one, but you will have people that are just wanting this to jump somewhere else. Retirement, I don't know, I suppose. What you might get is people from Missouri or from somewhere else that just retired there and just want another 4 or 5 years. And then that's up to you to decide, do I want to, you know, and it may be that that's the right person for you. I mean, you may want to get some things done here, like you said, and it may take someone that's going to come in and get it done, and then it's time for them to leave.
the last 4 years have been tough for people from out of state because the rules for certification in Illinois have been very challenging. So used to get a lot of Iowa people that would come in, finish off their career, and, you know, get 2 pensions, that sort of thing. And it was just more and more difficult to get them to come because they have to take all these tests. And I said, nah, it's not worth that. But the state board, in the wisdom, has eased up to some degree on that. Now, I don't know if you're going to have any teachers ever to hire, but that's a whole another challenge. But there's been less of that because of that particular phenomenon.
Do you have a candidate that ever shows up and said, hey, I'm going to be the greatest fit on this, but I want to bring in my own people with me when I come? Is that a big red flag for you?
I've never had anybody say that up front. You know, typically, there are a lot of people who'd like to say down the road if the position opens up, I have somebody I've worked with, I really trust them, I really like them, want them to be, you know, in the mix if I can get them there, but not when they say this is part of the deal to bring my own people. We've not done that because we don't believe that's transparent.
No,
And
it's not.
it's not the way the company works.
And I was just laughing because that happened down in my area. Someone came in and brought in everybody from North Carolina,
Yeah, they didn't.
and that didn't work out at all. So,
And they're good people too, but
And I apologize if you've mentioned this before, but how many searches have you personally been involved with McPherson before this search?
I've done 3. I had to drop out of doing searches when I was administrator at Western. But Gary's done 20, and,
I've been involved in 2.
yeah.
But we're just breaking into Illinois. I don't know if you noticed that. If you see, we're everywhere, but Illinois is.
We're on the edges.
Yeah, we're on the edges, but Illinois is a nut that we've been trying to crack to get into.
Yeah, our friends at Hazard INT and Illinois School Board
And these
say,
guys that just walked out.
they-
We're all.
they get a lot, they get a lot of searches. We understand that, but we think we're a little different, so,
Everybody's got their niche.
yeah.
We're just trying to push them out of theirs a little bit.
All right, we are approaching our 60 minutes, so we've held these men up for a while. Any other questions?
Well, my card is
thank you
in
then.
each of your folders. We have the point of contact folder up here and one extra package of materials in case there's somebody else that you think needs to.
There's a board member that's not here tonight. that
Oh,
we-
okay.
Has one over here.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
oh,
I
I'm
get
sorry.
it.
Okay, so there's another one here. These guys already have theirs. They've been using them all the way through. Yeah. Yeah, look at them. All right, well, thank you for your
Thank you.
patience, and appreciate the opportunity to come visit with you. And
Yes, and if you have any questions, do give us a call.
And so, do you have a timeline of your decision? Do you have some idea how you're going to?
We
Process
we
this?
hope to have something decided by next Tuesday night.
Okay. All right, great.
So, and with that in mind, process-wise, board members, if you'll go ahead and fill out your rating sheets, we can use that as reference points as we go forward with the discussion. So while it's fresh in your mind.
Okay,
All right.
thanks.
Thank you.
All right, have a good evening.
Nice to meet you.
All right, so are you the longest term board member? Yes. Okay, so you're the dean. Of the state?
1987.
Wow. I'd say you probably are. So when are you going to have your?
understand I'm in the top 5 years.
So, yeah, isn't, guy in Morton, you know him?
I go to National School Board Association meetings, I don't even go up to them.
You don't?
My son's birthday is Board members, if you wish, we can discuss the candidates tonight, or we can wait and have a special meeting on Thursday or Friday, not Wednesday. I would like us to be in a position where we can award a contract Tuesday night, which would mean we would need some time for Lori to get it on the agenda, but us to be able to negotiate that contract between the next board action is to authorize one or two of us board members to negotiate a contract with a set firm. I was hoping, if we want to stay on schedule, we should try to have that decision made before the end of this week so that we can approve the contract Tuesday night, because otherwise things start to get pushed, and we begin to push the end result.
If we're going to have a discussion, I'd like to have Benita's input, but I can understand, if there's a clear consensus with the 6 of us already, that, well then.
I think that's what I was trying to get to. If board members are prepared, we could go around the room and just name our top 1 or 2, top 2, and then skinny it down from there if we think we're approaching a point where people can't. I know we're at open meetings, and it's okay to discuss, but we cannot make that final decision today. We have to have another meeting, a noticed meeting, to make the final decision. So if board members are ready, we can either throw out points, or in keeping with some of the things that are.
I'm certainly in favor of kind of trying to cull our positions tonight while it's fresh in our minds, and then soliciting Benita's input. But as Paul said, if we're pretty unanimous, I'm trying to remember how we did it with the campus land use study. I mean, if we kind of went around and each mentioned our top 2, I would be happy with this or this, or top 3, we might have done, would have been just top. Then we, get a sense of where, what our first and second choice is, and then we can see if Benita is aligned with that, because chances of us all being available, 7 of us later this week, is pretty slim.
Yes.
Exactly. It
So
is.
the rating sheets are for your personal assistance. They're not compiled and treated from there. It's just your personal way of gathering your own thoughts. So if there's board approval, I think we can go around the room and just, people can name their top 2. Is that? Yes. This all has to be done in open meeting.
Maybe just give me a minute to go back over the ones that were last week, because I was able to watch those presentations, which was great, but,
I'll go ahead and start, John.
Yeah.
My top 2 was the ISB and the first group that we saw, which was the
School
School
exec.
exec.
school exec. Yes, those are my top 2.
Lori, can you do check marks for us? Thank you.
My top was school exec, and my number 2 is almost a tie. I hate to. It was either McPherson or IASB. I think they're pushed neck and neck as far as I was concerned. Depending on whether we really were preferencing a national search, that would be McPherson. But if we're wanting more of an Illinois search, then IASB.
Ann, are you ready?
I guess I've only got it down to 3. School exec, I think ISB for just thoroughness of regulations statewide, but they also can do national. But I also like McPherson for being national, but I thought all 5 of them were very, very good. So that's the tough part I've got, is narrowing out people.
Ruth Ann, are you ready, or? No. While Ruth Ann and Peggy are preparing, my top 2 were McPherson and Ray. So.
I will say, I spoke to Benita after, and she did like the Illinois school exec. After is that the name of
the
them?
School Exec Connect, the first one?
School, yes.
Yeah, and she told me that there was nobody that was unacceptable to her. And I reiterate that for myself. There's nobody that's unacceptable. as far as I'm concerned. I would probably, if we want a national search, I would lean against IASB because of that. But that's a personal preference on how far we want to spread the net. If the net is inside Illinois, IASB is right up there.
Okay, you ready for me?
Yes.
Or, everybody's finished on that side?
Oh, I'll go.
Peggy still needs to go.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Either one of you.
I guess my top two would be School Exec Connect and then Hazard Young and Atia.
Ruth Ann?
And I'm at my top two of being school exec and IASB.
My feeling is that school exec has a plurality.
School exec with Benita is 6.
Okay.
Then depending on national versus statewide, ISD has 4 and McPherson has 3. And this one, but Benita, that wasn't heavily.
From that starting point, is there, are we far enough along to where we can schedule a special meeting and we can have further discussion and narrow down the top 2 down to 1?
I mean,
Or-
could we have a quick discussion on how important the national search is for us right now?
Sure can.
I'm just, because I mean, I think that's kind of going to be a deciding factor in what firm we want to search. I guess that would be, I guess, a follow-up question is I don't know, I guess, how many national candidates ISB typically brings into the state. I have no, I wasn't really clear on that.
They put a chart up there and it was about 90% in-state,
Right, most of it was.
10% out
Okay.
of
Mhm.
state.
It's pretty small.
So,
Yeah,
I bring up the fact that our last time we did an outside search, we ended up with out-of-state,
Right.
last 2 times.
I can see your point. My thinking is, if we did do a national search, I'm wondering with our tight timeline, how that would work.
Pretty much the same as the
Yeah.
in-state.
So,
I don't think it
okay.
would
I
affect the
wasn't- I wasn't
timeline.
quite sure.
What it will affect is if the board is, I really don't want us to be penny wise and pound foolish at this point in time, because bringing somebody in from out of state will cost an airplane ticket, whereas we might otherwise be paying somebody to drive. And that would probably be so there maybe a couple
I see.
$100 difference. But when we're talking about doing the search, I think our prices range from a low of 24,000 to a high of about 37, with McPherson and them indicating that they would price match
Yeah.
if price became an issue. So we're probably within all things considered, because some people included things and other people added things. And we're probably within $5,000 between the top and the bottom price-wise.
Yeah, I agree. I guess with regard to the national search, I mean, I would be delighted if we got a great candidate who's right here or right next door, but given the emphasis that we are now, focused on in our district, racial equity and restorative practices and the immersion of our dual immersion programs, I feel it seems like we're more likely to get candidates who are really on top of that and excited about that and have experience with that if we go beyond Illinois borders. If we find the right person in Illinois, I'd be delighted, but it just seems like we need to have a larger, broader scope, because we're sort of doing things that are kind of pushing the boundaries of what schools in Illinois are doing. And we want, we don't want a candidate to be kind of learning about those things as our leader. I would like to have someone has some experience and excitement and can kind of bring us to the next level.
Right. I'm not against a national search at all. Those were the two top candidates, you know, who I felt would do a good job. One of the things that I weighed also in deciding this was their past records and how many that they had actually been on this search, you know, themselves. So,
Well, I have to agree with Peggy. I mean, that's about the national search. That was a big thing for me, was thinking through someone who may have actually been from a district who's already tried some of the initiatives we've tried and has that experience would be something that I would consider might be easier to find outside of Illinois or outside of the Midwest maybe. So that was one of the driving factors for me with McPherson is that they will do that national search and dig deep into that. But I think I think it was comfort in knowing that the ISB people know all the rules and regulations. They said that they could do national searches because they have connections with every other school board association from practically all the other states in the union. But I mean, so they could potentially do the same sort of thing. And school exec, they seem to have the genuine concern to making sure we got the right fit, no matter what our criteria was. They reiterated to us, we will keep going until you get what you want and what you need. But, you know, I'm sure the other two would probably feel just as dedicated, but that was one of the selling points that the Illinois exec gave to me. So.
I also, I'm
I was
sorry.
going to say, I like school exec's answer to the question with regards to if we were unable to reach a contract with the selected candidate, they'd start the search over. Whereas McPherson was like, well, okay, well, number two.
And IASB was the same way as McPherson.
I also like school exec rates, you know, they kind of promoted their success rate, you know, 96% and, you know, are still in their position in 16 years with 360 superintendent searches, which was, I mean, it's hard to compare everybody's, the way they represented their success rate, but as far as I can tell, that was pretty much at the top of what everyone else expressed. Now, some of them only had a few, you know, they only talked about their own personal experience, which was pretty anecdotal. But I like the fact that they had a pretty solid success rate. I also just thought that they, you know, I realized after watching them all that partly what we're hiring is sort of how they present themselves. You know, that you want them to be competent, knowledgeable, professional without being too slick. You don't want them to be too folksy, but you want them to be kind of motivational. I mean, it's sort of a, and I really liked the way School Exec Connect did that. They also had a little, I was also looking for some diversity. I mean, they only had a diversity in that they had female, male. Hazard and Natia had at least one African-American, you know, on the team, you know, the only African-American who was part of our team, and that impressed me. Frankly, that's what kind of bumped them into my top level. Because, you know, they're going to be our face to the public when they're going out and talking to our stakeholder groups, when they're taking candidates around our schools. So, you know, the school exec had a little diversity in it. They had a woman, and Hazard and Natia had an African-American on the team. I also thought Hazard and Natia presented themselves very well. You know, competent, you know, articulate, you know, convincing without being too slick, you know, motivational without sounding, you know, but yet authentic. I mean, it's kind of a hard, you know, exactly, but those two groups did it for me.
In terms of doing background checks and diving deep into reference checks, I appreciated this last firm we talked to, and I appreciated school exec a little bit more than I did IASB. But I think it's because IASB already knows a lot of these people, and probably has more informal ways of checking into whether people are trying to sell us a bill of goods or whether the person is real. And I'm not talking about the background check, the criminal background check. I think everybody takes care of that pretty much equally, but I just meant the general vetting So I've talked myself out of the significant difference that I started with.
That's what this discussion's
Yeah,
for.
I reserve the right to change my mind, I guess. But I think in terms of transparency and an ability to demonstrate to the community that the candidates have been vetted completely and thoroughly, I like the firm's ability as opposed to the state agency's ability to be really forthright about how they're vetting people. What's the board's pleasure at this point? Ruth Ann, you haven't, I don't want to cut you off.
No.
You're all right? Okay.
I'm fine with my choices.
Tell us the numbers again,
We're still at School Exec Connect having a few more votes than either IASB or M&J.
And I think you're the only one who didn't list it in your top two, so, I mean, it sounds like the rest of us listed it in our top two, if I wrote that down correctly.
You're right.
So, I mean, are you, you know, I mean, including Benita, because Brenda, you said she reported feeling positive.
School
Uh-huh.
exec. I'm open to, I told you, none of the 5 firms create difficulty for me, not one of them. So if the majority of the board is preferring School Exec Connect, then I would suggest that we schedule a special meeting later this week. I'll have Lori check signals, but it doesn't need to be a lengthy meeting, but we do need a noticed meeting with the idea that you would be recommending that somebody, myself or 1 or 2 board members, would begin to have a discussion with School Exec Connect, and if you wish, we can leave 2 firms and narrow it down to 1, but we can discard, we can go to semifinalists and have 2 semifinalists and then pick a finalist, but the action would be later this week to identify a single entity and then empower 1 or 2 board members to negotiate a contract with that particular entity and bring it back to the board on Tuesday night, February 4th, I think 5th, for action. So that,
So you're talking about a really short kind of exec meeting, I mean, because
I'm anticipating a
single.
15 to 30-minute meeting at most
Uh-huh.
later this week to, unless board members are comfortable in narrowing it down straw poll wise, to where we would mostly discuss 1 firm, and then it would be probably a 10-minute meeting.
Can we do another poll, knowing it will be national search?
Yeah, I was just going to say, after hearing Peggy's discussion, I've reserved the right to change my mind as well, and I've got McPherson as my number 2 exclusively, dropping IASB, because I think you're right about, we want
Well,
to cast
I-
a wider net.
I didn't hear any votes other than mine for, H5, somebody picked all 5 firms got a vote.
Right.
Got a straw poll situation. So the highest ones, again, Lori, were,
School exec, I'm not gonna connect Benita. School exec has 5, and then McPherson Jacobson has 3, but ISB also has 3 just because of.
okay, so let's consider those 3 and do another straw poll around.
And just
So
the
which
top
3?
1 this time?
Um,
Or our first and second, see if our first and second has changed, or?
What's the pleasure? Nominal group theory would have us pick 1.
And
Okay.
I'm comfortable picking School Exec Connect, my first one, top choice.
I am too.
Yeah, make that 3.
I'm 4.
Now I've switched my numbers. I still like them. School exec, but I also like McPherson, like I put them in as a number 2, if not tied for 1. I'm sorry, I've just screwed
okay.
everything up.
No, no.
I mean, I do
Yeah.
like their national approach.
Um,
Jen.
Well, I continue to prefer M&J over school exec, but I can work with either one. But at this point in time, since we're only doing one, I feel okay throwing Benita's vote back in for school exec. So that would have school exec be, it'd be 5-2. So I think we should approach a meeting later this week with the idea that we will be a motion for school exec. And if people think about it in between time, we'll leave M&J on the table. But leaving tonight.
Yeah, Benita could watch tonight's meeting and change her mind too,
Mhm.
right?
That's right.
True,
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's
Yeah,
give
that's right.
Benita that ability to view the tape of tonight's meeting and go from there. All
Well,
right.
Sorry,
So
John, just
I
a-
think at a minimum, we've narrowed it down to 2, which is School Exec Connect and M&J. And with the idea that we're going to put an emphasis on a multi-state search. Maybe not coast to coast, but either of those firms would be capable of doing a multi-state search. And we'll wait to hear from Benita and we'll finalize it. So 48-hour notice would allow us to meet at the earliest Thursday, because it'd be first thing tomorrow morning when notice could get out. So we could meet
Lunchtime?
Thursday or Friday.
Gotta have a quorum.
Oh,
Because the weather is less, Friday would be safe.
Friday would be safer because of the weather. We do have to have a quorum.
I could meet at noon time on Friday.
But
Yep.
is that giving you, are
That-
you
that gi-
missing out on a day worth of being on the phone and trying to work out a contract?
I think we
No,
can get it
Friday?
done.
The more important thing is,
Friday.
does Lori have enough time to get that action on the agenda? And I'm assuming we would, could the agenda read recommendation of a consultant to carry out the search as opposed to naming the consultant? Or do we have to name the consultant? We have to name it.
You
Um,
won't know until you've got
Right.
votes. No, if you've got a couple of people, they're gonna be able to negotiate a contract and
My recollection of
weekend?
both of these presentations is that both of them were negotiable on price should it be necessary.
John, I'm sorry. Are you asking for an action item on the agenda to appoint people to negotiate a contract or to actually approve a contract already?
For Friday, it would be to negotiate a contract because by Tuesday night, we have to have an exact price and have a contract in front of us.
that's what I'm thinking.
I think we'd be able to negotiate with those firms over the weekend. They all seem very motivated to get this contract, so.
Yeah.
So Friday meeting?
Friday at lunch?
Yeah, I'm
or-
out of town Friday, I'm afraid, but
And
I'm,
I'm out of town too.
I can meet Friday at
I
lunch,
can-
Show of hands on who can meet Friday.
as
Okay,
long as it's
we've got
before
4
2.
plus Benita, hopefully.
sorry.
Depending upon when your
What?
lunch hour is.
We could do it late Thursday afternoon. It's supposed to warm up during the day on Thursday.
I couldn't do it Thursday.
Cannot, okay.
I'm here on Thursday afternoon.
I have more meetings at work on Thursday, but I might be able to pull it off.
I'm still, I
You're gone.
leave Wednesday, yeah.
Okay.
I can probably make it Thursday.
Either way, it's 4.
Yeah.
Then can I ask you to contact Benita and pick which of those 2 times Benita can make it?
Or noon?
Noon on Friday, but Thursday would be,
What's the weather supposed to be like Thursday noon? We should be able to meet on Thursday at noon because it's
It
supposed to
starts
start.
warming up.
I know it's 17 below bright and early
Well,
Thursday
yeah,
morning.
noon would be easier for me too. I could make it then.
Noon works.
When's your lunch?
Let's, noon Thursday or noon Friday,
I don't go to
and
work
find
till
out
2
whichever
o'clock.
one,
Oh, on
if we can find out even yet tonight.
Thursday and Friday. I work
High of
2 days.
13. Oh, we're adults, we can surely.
yeah. I would hope so, yeah, it's
Um,
not like,
Let's, we'll meet whichever of those 2 days Benita can whatever gives Benita the best chance to be a part of this
Okay.
decision.
And if you could let us know, Lori, then.
And is this discussion going to allow us to do any more apples-to-apples comparisons of the top criteria that we saw as important, or is that for now, we still keep talking about that?
I think if the board wishes to, we can continue to have discussions between School Exec Connect and M&J, McPherson but by the end of that meeting, we need to be down to one.
Mhm.
Okay? All right. Thank you. So, any other questions about process from here on out? So the aim and the goal is to have somebody under contract by Tuesday night. And School Exec, I think, was the firm that said, if we select them Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, they've got the ad up already.
Yeah.
So, all right, tonight's agenda. It was here somewhere. Here it is. So with that, I'm ready to ask for us to adjourn for a very brief exec session
So moved.
Second.
for the purpose of the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district or legal counsel for the district, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee or against legal counsel for the district to determine its validity. I've heard a motion and a second. Roll call.
Member Carter?
Yes.
Member Hall?
Yes.
Member Patton?
Yes.
Member Pulaski?
Yes.
Member Fisher votes yes. President Demmett?
Yes. All right, with that, there'll be no action following the exec session.